Colin's part of the industry discussion for good reason, that he's getting mighty close to doing real work, and he's fantastic to collaborate with. And in my presentation, I'm both going to sort of celebrate some of the sort of things that we've done with him and also make fun of him in the process. And I'm going to really start off with a bit of sort of philosophy, which is, look, humans aren't the smartest, fastest, biggest, meanest creature in the planet. We're just the ones that can get our act together and collaborate together. And that's really what makes us awesome and terrible, both. And I think it's sort of worth remembering that it's sort of, it's our superpower. Let's use it. Part of this original presentation was really motivated by the startup of the hub, where it sort of pushed me to sort of ask questions around, what are you trying to do here? Where do you belong in the ecosystem? And I thought, let's just start with discussing what the ecosystem looks like. What's this industry all about? And fundamentally, there's asset custodians. Desiree is one of them. They've got a whole lot of assets worth a whole lot of money, and they've got a whole lot of responsibilities. Along with those responsibilities come risk and uncertainties. They try and get rid of those risks and uncertainties by giving them to engineering consultants. Those engineering consultants try and diminish those risks and uncertainties by having technology integrators. Now, sometimes, like MTM, you've got all of those things in one house. And we've seen how that might work with something like LQ, where you lose the ability to be able to work out if any of these people are telling you furfies and giving you absolute rubbish. But what we really want from these big, boring utilities are standards, specifications, and rigorous review. And I think that's really what belongs in that house, and whether that's external or internal, make sure that you've got a review process. I think it's really important to understand where the money comes from, where the money flows. Money comes into asset custodians from all sorts of ways, but fundamentally for a lot of our public assets from taxes and fees and tolls. It then filters down through all these organisations and the research hub. Where does that money come from? Or what do utilities really need? So that's money. What do they actually want? And Govinda picked on it: actionable, immediate, credible and definitive outcomes. They want to know whether this structure has a problem, what to do next, and they want it pretty quickly. Now, where do you want to sit with a research hub with 3-year industry projects looking at PhDs? And I think where you really want to be is sitting about there. That you're helping these technology integrators and you're at the leading edge. Sort of very much, we'll get to Colin's comments in a bit. I'm going to go to the last year's, the 2023 presentation at the ANSHM workshop. And Queensland Rail asked for, how do we assess these distributed structures across our network in the middle of nowhere? We don't even know what happens after a rainfall. How do we even review it? We belted out a proposal of a system that we think is pretty damn good. I still haven't returned the email. But in terms of actually considering what the industry is requiring, we didn't do a bad job of listening. Transurban, Desiree showed an amazing slide set which really outlined an uncertainty. I was floored that anybody would stand up on stage and say, I don't know, quite so loudly as Desiree did. And I was also really impressed. I thought that was fantastic. We got involved in helping them and collaborating with the Rockfield and with Transurban to have a look at that data set. And we loaded it all up and had a look. And sure enough, there's this sort of weird thing where it looks really bad. It looks like the structure is losing stiffness. There's something really funny going on. It took Desiree's financial team 3 months to give us a purchase order and to get past some of they wanted to offload all risks to us. And we told them to get nicked. In the process, it got better. Let's just have a bit of a look at that data. It's this sort of funny kink that everything was going down to nowhere, and then all of a sudden it got better. So we changed the report, and it's just as well that the financial department and Transdev are damn awful to work with. There's certainly, in terms of temperature correlation, very, very strong temperature correlation between a lot of the gauges. Absolutely no doubt about it. This is tens of thousands of data points. And this is a really interesting plot where it sort of gets to Colin's point around statistical outcomes and DLAs. Actually, if you look at data a lot, you work out that nothing happens twice, but things do happen in patterns, and there are general trends. And what we saw on this bridge was pretty funky. And that is when it hits a threshold temperature, it changes stiffness. Still don't know why. The point of all this is there's two bits. The first bit is we listened, we're responding to industry. So we get a smiley face for that. If you're wanting to do something like the Hub is wanting to collaborate with industry, talk with us. And it's not just me, it's Rockfield, Jacobs, anyone who's in this industry. This is where it's happening. The other bit is you could write a damn good paper from here. We've taken you right to the leading edge. We've aligned the data sets. We've got a whole lot here. And then suddenly it is research. We'll get to that, Colin. I'm not going to talk about the TMR structures. In terms of TMR, super happy with what we're doing with the structure. I'm going to present on that next year. Pretty amazing. There's quite a lot of work, very like Rockfield's team. By the time you understand where the load is on a bridge, what the load is, then suddenly you can do really useful things in the frequency domain. And that's pretty stunning and will be really interesting. Most frequency domain analysis of these bridge structures, most of the time, is pretty useless because we don't know what the masses are. Suddenly you do. Yeah, really interesting work coming. ARTC, I can never make them happy. But certainly we've gone out of our way to analyse a bunch of their data. And one of the fundamental conclusions is the way that you're managing risk on these structures by putting speed restrictions on is fairly unhelpful and pretty useless. I don't think that we really got a big smiley face from that aspect of it, but I think it should be. Once you start using data to make better decisions about the way that you manage risks, you should be. This is where we get back to Colin and I get to make fun of him. The idea of engineering research as an oxymoron is a tension in the field. Totally out of context, right? But he's kind of right. We developed a system for Monash's, the living laboratory in the Woodfield building, and most of that wasn't research. It was a hell of a lot of hard work. But then we got him a state-of-the-art system with hundreds of really good sensors all over that structure. Now, where he steps off from state-of-the-art and gets on with research is so far down the track. And that's where we want to be. That's going to stay. The main bit of, other than the thing sitting in the middle of it, is if you really want to work with industry, think big. I don't want to put 2 accelerometers on some little bridge in the middle of nowhere and compete with Rockfield over the price of doing it. It's a silly job. We're not going to have any outcomes. Your students are going to be bored. It's not a good project at all. An organisation like ARTC, who owns these structures, is worth trillions of dollars, and they've written a specification which they haven't reviewed properly. That's the job. And let's get into that. It's worth lots. It's a worthwhile job. We want to do it. And what you can really do is employ me early to help sell the project to ARTC, to sell it to these utilities. And I don't want to compete with Rockfield over sticking 2 accelerometers on something, but I'd happily do a competition to see who can make the job as worthwhile as possible. Now the pipe. This is introduction to Will. Will's our next speaker. If anything interesting happens in infrastructure, we've failed. 2 weeks ago, this happened in Western Sydney. It's a great introduction to a pipeline problem. Simple structure. It's extremely valuable. Last time there was a problem in the pipe that we're monitoring, there was a Royal Commission. The utility are incredibly risk adverse, and it's really hard to work out how to stay below the criteria they've been given. I'm with it, Will. I'm doing what Colin did and delegating it to someone younger and smarter than me.